I want to see the black church rise to the point to where we have influence within politics.
You voted, my man? This is where you can vote at.
Some of these pastors, evangelical pastors, they have departed from the faith.
This is God's nation, and nobody is going to take it away from him.
You said faith leaders in the evangelical church have departed.
Yes.
Departed how?
Well, let me rephrase that. I don't think they've departed. I don't think they were ever Christian.
This is where you can vote. I'm not selling nothing. This is where you can vote. I'm Tim Findley.
You are holding up leaders, one in particular, Donald Trump, who is the epitome of racism and privilege and a person of low moral fabric. And yet you say he's God's man. I don't think it's a hard statement to make. I think it's a truthful statement. And that is, I do not believe that they have any relationship with God.
Hey, you're tuned into Live in Louisville, 919. Our next guest is Reverend Pastor Timothy Findley Jr., pastor of Kingdom Fellowship Christian Life Center. Pastor Tim, as I just stated, the black church was no longer considered ground zero for movements. Even the Black Lives Matter movement was the first movement not originated in the church that was around civil rights. And it seems as if the church has stepped away from creating activists and world changers. But you're saying, hey, let's go back to how it used to be. Is that right, Pastor Tim?
Absolutely.
I do think that now is the time for the church, and specifically the black church, to really reclaim
That motive, that feel, that impact in our society.
So talk about what you have coming up with our Vote Now weekend.
The purpose of this entire week is to really get people to shake off the apathy and really get people excited and inspired to get out to the polls and to vote.
For the last 150 days, Louisville has seen consistent and continued protests in the name of Breonna Taylor. That's 150 days where peaceful protests ended in tear gas and nights where this city burned. But for the last week or so, the city has slept quietly because the messaging on the street has changed. Black folks in Louisville haven't stopped saying Breonna Taylor's name. Now they're just focused on voting in her memory. And I'm here because the black churches of Louisville have followed in the tradition of the great black churches that have come before them in fighting for the change that they want to see in their communities.
We're going to be talking about political activism. So after we've hit the streets marching, how do we march to the polls? Going out and voting is not just a ritualistic thing. It actually has power. And we should also recognize in a certain way the power that has been taken from people already and have a dialogue about why they feel as though there's not much power in their vote.
We as black folks, we're at war. I'm just going to keep it real with you. This country is built off warfare. You know what I mean? So we got to vote like we're at war. So when we start moving by the rules of war, maybe I'll be a little more interested. But until then, you feel me?
Donald Trump is a white supremacist, and his base is white supremacist. So any black person who thinks he's going to negotiate anything positive for the black community is naive at best.
What is it like pastoring a church, leading a church in a city that is dealing with so much racially?
For anyone who has that call from God, you know that you're called for specific times, specific reasons. I believe that in Louisville, I've been placed in this moment and in this time for a reason.
I ain't heard Biden or Kamala Harris saying everything about protecting us from the police, about these food deserts, about getting our fathers out of prison, about miseducation from the school system, teaching black kids. I ain't heard everything.
Justice for Breonna Taylor is definitely the top of my list right now.
We have people hurting here. We have people who are seeking help. They want hope, and that's why we're here. That's the way in which I lead my church. I want people to realize that while this is a very dark time, this is not the end of the story, and there's something greater that's at stake. Well, I'll say to vote for Trump is not Christian. Jesus talked about defending poor people, the disenfranchised, more than anything else. And I think when you consider what Christianity is supposed to be, then there is no way that I can look at voting as something separate. So our role is not to be on the fringe. Our role is to be speaking truth to power. It's holding politicians accountable. It's to do as Jesus did.
We were hearing some pretty fiery language.
Absolutely. There's a state of emergency in the Black community. So what you heard tonight were people saying, this is a life and death situation. If you vote this way, it is going to affect our community for the next 4, 10, 20, 40 years. And it has to be taken and it has to be packaged like that, because if not, it's going to be the same old, same old.
The way change is going to happen in this city is you're going to have to make people uncomfortable.
You rose to national prominence when you were offering this space as a sanctuary to protesters, when you were providing shuttles to protests and they could park in the parking lot. What is your reputation like on the streets of Louisville?
My reputation with Black people and allies, it's 100.
It's great.
Great. For those who are opposed to the Black Lives Matter movement, for those who are opposed to the things that I value, like equity, speaking out against racial injustice, they are really, really angry with me.
They're locking up Pastor Tim. Help me! It says it's a peaceful protest. No! No! He's down! Mayor Fisher! He's down! He's down!
Listen, we okay? No justice!
No peace!
You've been very present in these protests. You've been arrested at these protests. Can you tell me what that experience has been like?
I feel something that's been good for the city to see. People were outraged that I was thrown to the ground. They were outraged that they would arrest Pastor Tim. And many people who have not been engaged, when they saw that, it did something to them.
Pastor Tim, you getting a cut today?
Yeah, whenever y'all ready. Yes, sir.
Do you feel like voting is actually a viable way to see the change that you all are fighting for realized in this city?
The whole purpose is to get people in office that have our best interests at heart. Hopefully look like us, but at least know our struggles and know what we're aiming for, what we're fighting for, and are advocates for us in office. How realistic that is, it can be murky.
But you know what we done found out in Louisville? That the voting is one part of it, but we also found out protesting changes things too.
How do y'all feel about, I guess, the violence and stuff that has been going on?
I think a lot of stuff is reported as violence where there's not been violence. People like to talk about the reaction and never talk about what caused the reaction.
Right.
If there's rioting, why is there rioting? If there's looting, why is there looting? If there's violence, why is there violence?
So you're saying there's something much deeper provoking this?
Absolutely.
What are you referring to, I guess, or how much deeper does it get than just the switch that was Breonna Taylor's passing, her murder?
The fact that there's a food desert in the West End, the fact that COVID-19 killed Black people at 2.5 times the rate of white people, the fact that some Black folk have not gotten their unemployment since COVID-19 and are getting evicted out of their apartments. And I think that all the things that we're seeing in this moment, it's been building up and compounding for years and years and years.
How do you change it? I mean, will it ever change?
I don't think it'll ever change. I don't think, because I feel like we've done a lot of talking about certain situations and this same situation, and the change is very minimal, and I would like to be here to see it, but I don't feel like it'll ever change the way I'm thinking.
We hope for change, and we push for change, and we fight for change. But the pattern in America for 401 years has not been one of change. What's up, bro? You voting, man? What's up? Cool. Appreciate you, man. Y'all voting? I'm not selling nothing. This is where you can vote. You can vote today.
Okay, thank you.
All right? We need you to vote. We got to get Trump out of there. Since I ain't selling nothing, I'm just letting you know you can vote. This is where you can vote. You not voting? We need you to vote.
Dude, I voted already this morning.
Hey,
Pastor. Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, man.
Pastor Tim's been walking through the parking lot of this Walmart trying to get people to vote.
Sis, you voted already? You have? Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. My man, you voted yet? You gonna vote? You not gonna vote? Come on, man.
It's day 3 of the Vote Now weekend that Pastor Tim has put on. The Urban League is leading a caravan through some of the black neighborhoods of Louisville to just get black folks to get to the polls and vote.
I grew up 5 minutes from here. This is my neighborhood. I love this area. We have a tremendous opportunity, an opportunity today to vote. We have to have the right people in place, in position, so that our communities can get the resources that we need. So thank you all for being here, and let's have a good time today.
On the route, you all, we're gonna go on Preston. Please make sure you don't go so fast that we lose people.
How would you describe Newburgh?
Distressed, resources just not coming in, dealing with crime, dealing with, all the sort of social ills that you think about when you think of a predominantly black neighborhood that has sort of been marginalized. This is the house I grew up in.
Wow. Did you ever see yourself doing this today?
No, not in a million years.
It's interesting because, you'll talk to different people and they'll say churches, religious groups shouldn't be getting involved in stuff like this, but this doesn't feel overtly political.
Right.
It's one thing to say, if we had Biden stickers all over these cars, right? But everything just says go vote.
Right. Well, and I reject that notion that churches shouldn't get involved in politics.
Right.
I don't think that there's anything that supports that biblically.
Right.
I think that we should absolutely be involved in politics. I think that we should be the consciousness of the state, our elected officials. We should hold them accountable, and we should get people in position to exercise their constitutional right.
Check 1, 2, early voting is available. You can go vote right now. The polls are open.
We're at the Louisville Expo Center. We made it through Newburgh. The caravan pulled up in the parking lot and they're playing music and giving out barbecue. They're having a full party and telling people to go vote. And right now, Pastor Tim is inside casting his ballot for president. So we made it. It was that easy.
That easy. 0 wait. Nobody in line.
How do you feel?
I feel great. I
Good?
feel like I'm doing what my ancestors died for us to do.
It's a nice house, man.
Thank you. All right, you can meet everybody.
Hey, how you guys doing? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Say, I'm Ashton.
What was Tim like as a kid?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You might not want to bark up that tree. He's always pulling pranks on teachers or students or putting, plastic worms in his teacher's coffee.
Oh, no.
Doing things like
Those weren't plastic worms.
Or putting rocks and snowballs and throwing them at cars.
Oh, no.
Or scratching a brand new truck.
How have you all, reflected on the work that he is doing in the city of Louisville right now?
A lot of stuff will never change unless you go get it. And it's one of the things I've always told Tim, that people don't give you stuff. You don't get charity. The only way you really get anything is that you go after it and get it. Mm-hmm. And so that's why what he's doing was just necessary for the time that we're living in.
As his parents, are you all proud of what Tim has been able to accomplish and what he continues to do?
Yeah, real proud. It's a little bit of worry though, because you saw the tape in St. Matthew when they were in St. Matthews, when they had him down on the ground.
That's right.
They had their knee on him just like they did with George Floyd. This was a week after George Floyd. They had him down on the street, knee on his neck, just like. And I thought, did they not learn anything?
We really do believe that he has God's protection around him. Mm-hmm. And so that's what kind of gives us that kind of peace in our spirit.
I probably average about 10 messages a week where I'm being completely cussed out in my inbox. I get a couple death threats per week.
You've gotten death threats?
Oh, yeah. I've had people tell me that if they see me in the street protesting, they're gonna aim for me with their car. I've had people tell me they're gonna find out where I live at, and they're gonna come and do to me what happened to Breonna Taylor. So that's a part of this. It's not something that I'm bothered by. I have a great team around me. But when you start speaking against injustice, when you start being the church, and when I say being the church, being that place, that lighthouse, those things are going to happen.
But that's real, that's not baseless. Pastors, black pastors have been targeted, they've been killed, their churches have been bombed and burned. That doesn't scare you?
It's a part of this fight. It's a part of the fight. And I want my legacy to be that I gave everything that I could to help my people. For the last several days, we have been concentrating on rallying and pushing people to get out and vote. But we bless the Lord for the opportunity to tell the story of how Christians not only love Christ, but we understand that we have been called to civic engagement. Amen? Amen. Listen, we're going to get into the word. Aren't you glad that he died for you and even loved you when you were at your lowest point, when you didn't have even good sense to thank him? I cannot truly love God if there is no sacrifice involved. Aren't you glad that he loves you until you come to your right mind? Y'all ain't said nothing to me. I'm going to say it again. Aren't you glad that he loves you until you came to yourself? I did not get what I deserved, but it was the love of God that took on the avalanche of consequence and said, no, I know they jacked up. No, I know they tore up. No, I know they got issues, but they belong to me, and I'm not going to let them die. I said, tell somebody that you have a mandate, you have a responsibility to love the people that hate you. You got to love the people that don't like you. Actively trying to set traps for you. Actively trying to take you out. And he said, that's who I want you to love. Because when you can love your enemies, then I know it's not you. It's the God in you. I need you to help me. Grab your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't know about you, but I'm going to love the hell out of you.
Oh, thank you, God!
Come on, don't you waste this moment. I'll go ahead and go.
Are you ever worried that these efforts won't work, that you're fighting a fight too big? For instance, you see Louisville and Jefferson County, and you see Lexington, and there are these tiny little blue dots in the sea of red across the map.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever worry that this is all for naught, that this isn't, you can't win this fight?
I believe that things can get incrementally better in places. I believe that I can make a better life for the generation after me, but I don't think, we're going to create heaven on earth.
Right.
I don't think we're going to be able to do that. But I do believe it's my role to keep pushing, keep fighting, and trying to better the little block that I have.